The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
Very warm welcome to Squawk Box. Huge day on the markets. Lots going on in central banks as well. And a vast number of corporates appearing on this show. These are your headlines. The Bank of Japan hikes rates for only the second time since 2007, whilst unveiling an aggressive plan to cut monthly bond buying in half. Microsoft, though, falls in extended trade as the tech giant posts the first miss on cloud revenue growth since October 2022. But shares come off their lows on hopes growth reaccelerates next year.
Net profit at HSBC drops in the second quarter. That's while Europe's largest lender announces a $3 billion buyback. Outgoing CEO Noel Quinn tells CNBC the bank is well placed for changes in monetary policy.
In 2025, we're guiding to mid-teens return. So we've lessened the impact on interest rates and diversified the revenue to give us the resilience and the sustainability of returns going forward.
L'Oreal misses second quarter sales estimates, posting its slowest quarterly growth in more than 2 years. That's amid depressed Chinese demand.
Right, fabulous day's news. If you're a news junkie on economics, politics and business, you do not want to miss the next 3 hours, I can assure you. A decisive move from the Bank of Japan, raising its key target rate to 0.25% from 0 to 0.1%, and outlining plans to scale back its monthly bond purchases. I think it's the latter as much as the former that's absolutely pivotal here. The decision, which was approved by a 7-2 vote, puts the benchmark interest rate at its highest level since the global financial crisis. The central bank also decided on a quantitative tightening plan that would roughly halve the monthly bond buying to 3 trillion yen in the first quarter 2026, as it pushes forward with phasing out a decade of massive monetary stimulus. Now, we'll get more details on the decision when the Governor Ueda holds a press conference. That's coming up at 8:30 Central European time. In the meantime, let's take a look at what the yen's up to as well, because there had been a lot of anticipation on both those moves, both on the bond buying cut and indeed on the interest rate hike as well. And as this show has pointed out for a long time, it's all very well having Bank of Japan intervention in the market to shore up the position of the yen, but actually it's policy action that will do the action, and that has proved to be the case. Let's take a look at the JGBs and where they are currently trading as well. For the first time in over a decade, you get a serious amount of yield compared to the negative yield you have for so long, i.e. over 1%. What does that mean for the global carry trade? Well, that's a fascinating question, which we'll carry on asking many of our guests. A quick look at broader Asian markets before we get to our correspondent who's going to update us on all this. Calm move on the Nikkei. Hang Seng's up a couple of percent. Shanghai Composite rallying 1.8%. But fantastic bit of news out of the Bank of Japan as well. Lynn, I'm fascinated to see what Ueda has to say about future moves. The market always wants to know what's coming next as well. But quite a historic day in many ways.
Yeah, good morning to you, Steve. It's been a doozy of a day, Asia side, for us. In the end, we did get that 1-2 punch, but when it comes to that rate hike, only a couple of weeks ago, market very split about whether or not that would happen. And then in the last 24 hours, certainly the mood really shifted off the back of those leaks into Japanese local media suggesting that the BOJ was mulling this 15 basis point hike, which is what we got. Now, of course, as you've just said there, really looking forward to that press conference in about 90 minutes where, you'd expect Wade-san will be fleshing out the decision. But in terms of the monetary policy statement, the reasons that they gave for this hike was that they were projecting inflation to stay around that 2% target in the coming months. They said that there is signs of that broadening wage hikes continuing, and also that services prices were trending up as well. They also said that the BOJ would keep raising rates as needed depending on what the data shows. But this was pretty hotly debated, because if you look at the decision split by the board members 7-2, whereas the QT plan was unanimous. And we did know as well coming into this that according to some reports by Reuters that there were some board members still quite worried about the underlying Japanese economy, whether it could shoulder the rate hike, the questions around the health of the consumer, and whether or not it would have been more prudent to perhaps wait for more data points. But in the end, as I said, we did get that rate hike. Now, on the other side, this QT program, this was very much signalled by the BOJ last month, and kind of in line, you could say broadly, with where consensus was at. So what they're saying now is that they will be halving the bond purchases from 6 trillion yen a month down to 3 trillion by Q1 of 2026. So in around 18 months from now. And the goal here is that they are going to be purchasing, starting from August, 400 billion yen of the 5 to 10 year JGBs, and also scrapping the range in the past, which was around the 400 to 450 billion yen. So that is really, I guess, what happened in a nutshell. But in terms of what we're seeing in the markets, as you were highlighting there, we are seeing the yields going up, and they were going up in anticipation of this decision. A lot of market positioning ahead, signaling what we ended up getting. We've got the 10-year up 4 basis points at 1.04. In terms of dollar yen, this, obviously not touched on in the monetary policy statement, but looming so large over all of this, because it was at 161 just a month ago. It's appreciated about 4.5% or a bit more than that now. And we've seen quite a bit of volatility off the back of this decision, but some slight strengthening for the yen coming through at 15250. But still, of course, Steve, so much more to unpack there.
It really is. And we love what you did there as well. As you say, lovely phrase there, a doozy of a day already. Thank you for that.
Now, Siemens Healthineers has reiterated its guidance for the fiscal year, with revenue expected to grow between 4.5 as well as 6.5%. This after it reported a 9% jump in adjusted EBIT in the third quarter, and despite being weighed down then by order delays out of China. We speak to the CFO then of Siemens Healthineers. That's Joachim Schmitz now joining us on the line. Joachim, thank you so much for the time. Then just comparable revenue growth then so far, 4.3%. The anticipation then, as you say, is to grow to between 4.5 and 6.5%. Where exactly does that growth then come from for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, we are very happy with what we have seen in Q3. We saw a good book-to-bill ratio of 1.07, and we see strength in the markets across the world, with one exception, which is China. And this leads us to confirm the outlook for the top line for 4.5 to 6.5%. But we believe that it will be more at the lower end of the range than at the upper end.
Yeah, you also had you had anticipated this pent-up demand, as you made note of, in China not happening at this stage then. So how do you see that area performing, particularly for your business for the remainder of the year, and how much is going to add then to that bottom line?
Yeah, we will expect to see, and we saw that already in Q3, a stabilization in China. We expect to turn back into a growth territory in our Q4 next quarter, and then we expect, in particular in fiscal year 2025, to see the pent-up demand kicking in, supported by the stimulus program, which was announced by the government and which is now starting to be shaped so it becomes clear how it will work, and then it will also unleash, so to say, the pent-up demand from our customers.
Jochen, when I see people like Boris Pistorius very upset with Christian Lindner, he's not the only one. Karl Lauterbach, I'm sure, would have liked to see a greater budget. I know Wes Streeting is going to be upset if Rachel Reeves doesn't okay a lot of his plans as well. Budgets are under pressure everywhere, not just in China as well. Is the pulling in the purse strings in order to meet fiscal levels in Europe especially going to create a problem for companies such as Siemens Healthineers?
When we look at the dynamics in the marketplaces, I think, as I said before, and we see healthy markets in general everywhere. We see the China topic as a temporary effect to fight corruption in the marketplace, which we welcome in general. And when we look at competing, I would say, demands for public budgets, I think that is an ongoing topic. That is nothing new. Yeah? And when you look at the relevance of healthcare for a working society, I'm not worried about the priority setting here. So we look forward to healthy markets also in Europe.
Good. I hope you're right. I'm fascinated by some of the new product development that you and your peers, we spoke to Fresenius Medical Care yesterday. There's some amazing stuff going on in all kinds of areas, whether it's imaging, whether it's cancer care, whether it's dialysis, whatever you. Just tell me where you're most excited about the growth opportunities, Jochen.
Yeah, when you look at our innovation pipeline, I think we are in almost all businesses we are innovation leader. I'm very excited about the progress we see on our photon counting CT, helium-free MRIs, which broaden the spectrum of use for MRIs significantly. I'm also very pleased about the success we see with Italica in the marketplace, which is meanwhile growing in the higher teens on an ongoing basis. So we have a lot of great advancements, and when we also look at Varian Hyperside, a very, very interesting application which combines highest image quality with direct therapy and is exactly paying into our synergy story of combining Varian with Siemens Healthineers.
Jochen, I think there are so many false dawns that are going to happen over the next few years over AI. But what I am really excited about is there isn't a doctor out there, there isn't a medical professional out there that can assess information that comes from your kind of products the way that an AI can as well. I mean, I've read about it. It's quite extraordinary. How revolutionary is the speed of adoption of AI for diagnosis and actually for using your equipment and actually getting the right results from it?
I mean, AI is obviously a very important technology, and AI will be in the future everywhere as maybe comparable as it was with software two or 1 decade ago. Therefore, we see AI in all kinds of our products. It's necessary to run our service efficiently and remotely. It is necessary to run our systems, and it's obviously very relevant to better read and interpret images, and by this define the therapy plans. Therefore, AI will be everywhere, address one of the major challenges in the healthcare industry, which is staff shortage, and therefore we are very happy, and we are leading in this field, and we invest a lot, and I'm not sure that it will revolutionize, but it will dominate over time. It will be a dominating technology also in healthcare.
Yeah, Jochen, that means a lot of spending as well by companies like yourselves then. I mean, would that mean that you'd look to acquire another entity that would perhaps help in this regard, or are you investing just a little bit further in the business in order to get right with that?
I would say when we look at our organic investment into AI, I think we are very well established there. We run our own supercomputing hub. We have the by far largest data lake of curated images. We talk meanwhile about far beyond 2 billion of curated images, which defines the learning ground for our AI algorithms. So we are well prepared for what is coming. But I don't see this as necessary as a major M&A field for us. I think it's more an constant organic investment field for us.
Yeah, very interesting set of results here, and just the future as well in this space. Jochen, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it this morning. Jochen Schmitz, the CFO then of Siemens Healthineers. Once again, we do have a flurry of earnings out this morning and several back-to-back interviews with European C-suite leaders. We'll be hearing from the chief execs of Schneider Electric, OMV, even BBVA, among many others. So do stay tuned to Squawk Box over the next few hours for that.
Ambition to me is about doing better.
I think ambition creates a pathway.
The best advice I can give to someone starting off a career is don't have a career, have lots of careers, try loads of different things.
Talk to people and put your ambition out there.
I don't feel that I've hit peak ambition because it's a learning journey.
CNBC is where ambition meets opportunity. What does living ambitiously mean to you? Hear it from our CNBC anchors, reporters, and global business leaders on CNBC.com.
Well, it looks like the rotation's continuing, right? It's beginning to find a little bit of steam here and there as well. There are certain parts of it that are beginning to make a little bit of sense as well. So this market looks like it's headed in that direction. And this is what you got yesterday. It was a mixed board then, again in that rotation space, because the Dow Jones Industrial did manage to move a little bit higher there, 0.5% or so. Then with the S&P 500 juxtaposed to that, 0.5% lower on the day's trading. The Nasdaq comp losing more than 1.33% there. And again, the tech players being key and very significant to this downturn. In fact, so much so that you saw most of this board actually head in negative territory, unlike Apple as well as Alphabet then, which managed to find some gains. The big loser then in yesterday's trading, while Tesla did go down 4%, really was NVIDIA. It was on the back of the AMD numbers as well that we were looking towards what would happen with that chip cycle. Of course, Microsoft earnings also coming out yesterday. So that would have been the key focus, of course, for the market. On the back of everything, Microsoft actually went down 0.8%. The market saying, yes, you're allowed then, of course, to beat the estimates on the street, but it can't be a marginal beat. It needs to be a really big beat. And we'll unpack that in just a few moments, in fact, with Arjun. But I just thought we'd touch on the NVIDIA trade then. Following on from the AMD numbers, AMD actually managed to beat off a little bit of those numbers. They climbed. And as you can see then in the stock trading just yesterday, just the negativity across the board. However, NVIDIA managed to climb in extended trading, more than 5% higher. Very quickly, here's your treasuries board then. Yields are steady, slightly lower than in yesterday's number as well after positive consumer confidence data. We are headed, of course, to that Fed interest rates decision later on, and we'll unpack that. And you're just seeing the 10-year note then at 4.14, significant decline then in that yield. Steve.
Yeah, let's unpack Microsoft a little bit more. Thanks, Arabile. The shares dropped, 2.7%. They actually went down a lot more than that at one stage. This after the bell, as it became the latest tech giant to be punished by investors frustrated with the speed of its AI expansion. And there's two reasons why you don't have AI expansion. One, because you're not getting enough demand. Two, because you can't satiate the demand. My understanding it's the latter, but we'll come to that with Arjun in a moment. Now, cloud revenue services growth at the company came in lower than expected for the quarter ending June 30th. I mean, again, I think we're being pedantic here when we look at the numbers. Again, I'll come to that with Arjun. Even as CapEx surged, share price losses pulled back after the CFO, Amy Hood, told investors Microsoft expects cloud growth to re-accelerate next year because of that CapEx. The CEO, Sundar Pichai, said the spending that's not the CEO. It's Satya Nadella. I think someone's written the wrong CEO in there as well. Anyway, said the spending is a reaction to cloud demand. That's Satya Nadella talking there as well. Arjun, there were two key points I thought there. Is one, they punished them because growth was 29, down from 31%. Huge figure. They punished them because, despite the fact they expect it still to be 29% top end in the current quarter as well. Amy Hood, they're talking about the re-acceleration. Satya Nadella saying, look, we've spent the money, it will come. We've kind of built the field, they will come.
Yeah, look, I think the backdrop going into the earnings is incredibly important. One is that we continue to talk about this rotation out of tech stocks, and what that meant is going into this, and we saw this with Alphabet as well, the expectations were incredibly high, and a near miss in line with expectation was just never going to be good enough. It had to be a blockbuster beat, and that's not what we had as well. The added layer to this, and again, it's a question.
So let me just get in there. You have the expected number, but then you have what's called the whisper.
The whisper.
Yeah. And it's the whisper number they didn't beat. The numbers themselves, I mean, again, I think these are huge numbers.
Very huge numbers. Strong growth. Continued very strong growth in those divisions. When you're looking at Azure, etc., up, 28, 29%, that's a big number.
So NVIDIA, which trades at X time, 40 odd times, whatever, has to basically beat by X margin. There's concerns about that. Microsoft has to beat by X margin because it trades on 30 times forward. But hang on a second. But Tesla flunks. Tesla flunks and trades on 80 times forward. No one cares because they say, we're going to have robo-taxis. Hilarious, isn't it? Real companies making real money with real growth. They get punished.
Absolutely. And the other added layer for Microsoft, and I think all the big tech companies this quarter in particular, is around that spending figure. While investors want to see AI, they're also saying, well, we need you to keep costs under control. And if you saw in the latest quarter from Microsoft, those capital expenditures ballooned around 80%.
This is brilliant. This is Wall Street all over, isn't it? It's like, we want anything with an AI tag. If you put put .com in there, or you put cloud, or you tell us you're going to have a SPAC, or you tell us what... It's 5G. Usual nonsense. But then all of a sudden, the market flips on these companies, says, it's going to be AI plus profits. Yeah, it's AI roots profitability. I love the speed with which the Wall Street mentality can change.
And Microsoft sort of tried to address that on the call, saying, well, look, we had Azure growth, up 29% in the quarter. 8 percentage points of that was from AI. That was up from previous. I think the previous said sort of about 1 or 2% of that from. So they're trying to tell the market here, look, we are seeing those returns from AI, but again, it was those sort of lofty expectations the market had, and the fact that Microsoft just near miss on those. There are other bright spots in that report. Look, you had things like their productivity division, which includes LinkedIn, etc. That was a beat. Their personal computing division, this is devices, gaming, etc. Again, a beat, as we're seeing the PC market recover as well. But ultimately, all eyes were always going to be on that cloud unit as well. I mean, the other flip side here is the fact Microsoft's CapEx is ballooning so much is good news in some respects for the chip makers, chip makers in particular, for the NVIDIAs, the AMDs, and the Samsungs of this world. And interestingly...
And that's why AMD flipped the NVIDIA move last night, yeah?
Absolutely, and that's why AMD had very solid set of earnings, but also Samsung's profit, I think, was up about 1,400% year on year, again, because these sort of so-called high bandwidth memory chips that Samsung and its rival SK Hynix make are bought by NVIDIA.
But that's going down second half then. They anticipate, Samsung is predominantly going out in their earnings picture this morning saying actually second half of the year they expect to see a little bit of an easing in that because they're going to now focus a little bit more on those high bandwidth memory chips, right?
That's right, and those are the ones that are being sold to the likes of NVIDIA in their sort of chip stack, and those are then being sold onto the likes of Microsoft and Amazon, etc. So it's sort of trying to link all those pieces of the puzzle. If Microsoft is continuing to spend more and more on this looks to bode well, particularly for some of those chip makers who are key to those training models.
Right, let's do a bit of work on this one. It trades on 32 times forward. This is back to Microsoft if we can get the chart up, actually. Strong buyers 21, buyers 34. So what's that off the top of my head? 55 buyers. Sellers? Anyone?
Zero.
Strong sellers?
None.
Zero. Holders? A mighty 2.
Wow.
So the market still loves this one at the moment. I haven't seen any upgraded analysts. Who sold it yesterday? That's why and I think this is the part of a bigger story. And I just want to tie this in for our viewers a little bit as well, because if the yen is attracting more interest, if the Japanese JGBs are attracting more interest because you've now got a decent positive yield out there as well, if the carry is having a bit of a challenge because we're expecting the Fed to signal there's going to be a cut at some stage, I think that's fascinating for a lot of these tech companies that have been major beneficiaries of the carry trade. I'm just tying a lot of themes together there.
Yeah.
Okay, right, let's do that then. Thank you very much indeed. We didn't even get on to NVIDIA. We'll do a little bit of that later. Airbus has launched a review of its space business after charges of almost $1 billion in the first half. Second quarter operating profit at the European plane maker fell 56% to 840 million euros. That still beat expectations. The Airbus CEO Guillaume Faury told CNBC the company is ramping up production in the United States.
We see ourselves as well as a US company. We're procuring a lot in the US. We're also assembling, producing in the US. We have final assembly lines for the 220, for the 320, for satellites, for helicopters in the US. So we have thousands of employees and hundreds of thousands indirectly. So I would not put it this way, and I will not comment for the challenges that we see at Boeing. We have also our own difficulties to overcome, and that's good enough for me.
Thank you for listening to Squawk Box Europe Express.
For more market-moving news, you can head to cnbc.com.
Or join us again on the show with Steve Sedgwick, Karen Cho, and myself, Arabi Lekumete, weekdays on CNBC.